Movie guy Will Meyer here to tell us what to see, skip, and rent. Christmas Day, always a big release date every single year. You said 7 movies were released.
Something like 7 movies released on Christmas Day.
You haven't seen them all yet.
No, I didn't have time to see them all. I did see 3, but yeah, not all of them.
So the first one, The Hateful Eight, isn't out all over the U.S. yet. But
no,
the
it's just in a few cities. Yeah, The Pinnacle is one of them, actually. It's a part of the 70mm roadshow. It's showing in a few cities nationwide in this format. Essentially, it's a much larger picture and a much higher resolution than you're used to seeing. There actually hasn't been a movie released like this since the 60s, so it's a really special treat that Knoxville is one of the ones getting to see it. You know, it's probably because the writer-director Quentin Tarantino is from Knoxville. He's a guy, if you hear his name, you probably either love him or hate him. He's pretty polarizing. His use of excessive violence, scenes of a lot of dialogue. You know, he definitely puts you on one end of the spectrum, but you know, he's definitely a visionary and somebody who's one of the most original filmmakers of the last 20 years. As per usual, he blends genres together here, but this is mostly a Western. It stars Kurt Russell, Samuel L. Jackson, and Jennifer Jason Leigh, among many others. Though this is a 3-hour movie, as we were talking about a little bit ago.
Be prepared to stay there a while.
Yeah, it does have an intermission, but yeah, it is 3 hours, but it's also a mystery, and the mystery really keeps you glued in. I thought this movie really didn't drag at all, and it was, considering the first hour and 45 minutes is purely dialogue, I was never bored for a second, but you know, it's really exciting whodunit. You really don't know, you know, what's going to happen. You have a bunch of people in a room with a motive to kill. You give them guns, and they're a bunch of nefarious characters. Something bad's going to happen, and they do a great job of keeping the mystery under wraps. Once the mystery is revealed, though, it starts to spin its wheels, and you realize that there's really not a whole lot of story here. There's not really much reason for it to go on. Tarantino has long been accused of being self-indulgent and letting his movies, you know, get a little away from him. But there's still a lot to admire here. The performances were great. Jennifer Jason Leigh was wonderful. Great cinematography. It's beautiful to see in 70mm, and you know, there's just great dialogue. It's not my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, but I still really enjoyed it. Definitely worth seeing.
And worth the 3 hours.
It's worth the 3 hours, yes.
All right, next is one that has been highly anticipated because we've seen this cast before with this director. Of course, we're talking about Jennifer Lawrence and Joy. But you said it wasn't the best one of these.
Because of that collaboration, because of Jennifer Lawrence, Bradley Cooper, and De Niro, you know, they worked with David O. Russell in American Hustle and Silver Linings Playbook, and 2 really good successes, and that made me really excited for this film. But I was so disappointed to see that, you know, what made those movies so good was that they were so alive. They had this manic energy, and this movie just feels asleep at the wheel. It's so just boring, and you feel emotionally detached from the characters. Nothing connects. The triumphs don't feel triumphant. The tragedies don't feel tragic. And I think it's because there's no character arcs. The characters start out one way. They stay exactly the same. There's no change, growth. They don't learn anything. And, you know, there's good stuff in each individual scene, but it really just feels choppy and disconnected. It doesn't really come together to form a movie that flows together really well. So, you know, I think that Jennifer Lawrence, though, comes out great in this because she's good enough to carry this movie and save it from being just outright bad.
She is very good.
Yeah, this movie really shows off what a tremendous actress she is, and I thought that Bradley Cooper was good too. As I said, there's some good stuff in here, but unfortunately, I was just really disappointed by this movie. I'd hoped it would be great, but I don't think that now this is going to be the Oscar contender everybody thought it might be. I think you may see a nomination for Jennifer Lawrence, but that's probably about it for this.
All right, let's move on to The Big Short, another big one that was in theaters this weekend.
Yeah, this one has an incredible cast too. Steve Carell, Christian Bale, Ryan Gosling, Brad Pitt. This is a movie that is about 4 outsiders who they predict the housing and credit bubble collapse in the mid-2000s, and they decide to take on the big banks for their lack of foresight and greed. This is a movie that's based on the book by Michael Lewis, who wrote Moneyball and The Blind Side, and this is a movie that tells such an interesting story. Everybody knows about the collapse, but you may not know about the people who, you know, bet money on it happening, and this is an interesting story because of that, but it also really explains exactly what went down. It explains finance and investing better than any movie I can think of, and it does it in a really entertaining way. It's from Adam McKay, the writer-director of Will Ferrell movies like Anchorman and Talladega Nights. So it's a departure for him, but he uses comedy to make it understandable. He has people like Selena Gomez explain complex financial terms, so it's really funny. Some of these bits work, some of them don't. It really soars, though, as a drama. It turns into a scathing indictment of greed, fraud, corruption that led us here. I thought it was immensely entertaining. It's a little overstuffed, but I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, too, and I immediately went out and bought the book, wanted to learn more. So it's not a perfect movie, but I really enjoyed it. So this one's definitely worth seeing.
All right, and you've got several movies on your list to see this week.
I got a whole bunch to see before next week.
Yeah,
so.
Another Will Ferrell movie, right?
Yeah, Daddy's Home, Concussion, Point Break. There's a lot more.
All right, much more to talk about next weekend here on See It, Skip It, or Will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.